Such is the nature of life, that all it asks and all it wants is the opportunity to appear. Whether it shows up as serious or frivolous or fun or hearty or light, it is still life showing up, and you're that opportunity, and I'm that opportunity, and so it is. I want to welcome you. I'm glad you're here. I invite you as we start off to join me in a very quick opening treatment just to set the tone for today. And this is what I know to be true. I know there's one power, one infinite intelligence, one universal presence right here, right now. And I am in it. It is in me. I am opening my heart and my mind to be present to this wonderful spirit, this wonderful life. So as I move through this next hour together, I do so knowing that greater ideas, wonderful feelings, and a new awareness of myself and of life emerges within me. As I move through this, I do this with ease, with grace, and with joy. And I know it's all true because I know it's all life and love, and I have declared it so. And so it is. So, we are a wonderful community. We are a community. Today we feel like a family because of all the wonderful connecting that was going on before. I like that. We are a family because we're all of the same Father or the same Spirit or the same givingness, because we're all made of the same stuff. We all come from that same source. So we can easily say we are one. And whatever your version of that one, wherever you have been, whatever you've traveled, whatever your belief system, whatever your choices in life, you are still honored, welcomed, and celebrated right here. We're glad you're here. We want you to know that, and we want you to know from this experience and this opportunity that you're among like-minded people who are supporting you for who you are. Knowing that, I want to let you also know then that we stand together around some basic ideas and some basic beliefs. And those beliefs you'll find in your program. They are listed, and I want to invite you to join me in reading them together. Stand if you'd like, as we declare our principles. I believe in one God, one absolute power, and first cause to all things. I believe that this power is perfect love, and it creates out of a desire to express love. I believe all thought is creative, and how I choose to think creates my personal experience. I believe in the unity of all life and the immortality of the individual soul forever unfolding. I believe in the eternal goodness, the eternal loving kindness, and the eternal givingness of God to all. Thank you. So we read that each week so you get an idea of basic principles that this center is built on, that our community is built on, and you can decide how much of this you believe or don't believe, and if you were to believe any of it, what it would mean for you, how it would change your life, and what choices you might want to make around that. We're not asking anyone to sign a dotted line or a doctrine that you're required to believe to be part of this. We're simply asking you to know what our core beliefs are, so you can make those choices for yourselves. And hopefully, if there are things in there, you look at that and go, I don't think that's true. It'll spur you to do some more thinking about it and see if you find your truth around that question or that idea. So if you're here for the first time, we're very glad you're here. I'm very glad you're here, and I know the others are too. Be sure to say hello if you haven't already. After the celebration, we'll be out front. And to just let us know you're here, what you're looking for, how we may serve you. And if you are here for the first time, know that we don't kill the chicken today. We do that on another week. So you're okay. You have to be in the in crowd before you see that. So I'm sorry, I haven't said that since I've been here, and I had to at least once. It just has to come out every so often. All right. The next part of our celebration gets a little more grounded and centered and focused. And that is our time together to come together in spiritual mind treatment or affirmative prayer. And this is really the greatest gift that this teaching, I think, has brought to the world, is a new idea of prayer, an idea of prayer that is not begging or pleading, but that is affirming the truth, knowing that we live in a universe that says yes. We live in a spirit that says yes. We live in a life that says yes. And so each week we do this, and we ask one of our practitioners here to come forward and do an introduction and then also an opening treatment for us, to really look at, and treatment is another word for affirmative prayer, to give us a chance to go centered on ourselves and what we're looking for and what we're wanting to bring and have happen. So I invite you then to join me in welcoming Doug Moody, who is one of our lead practitioners, to come and do this. Thank you.
Good morning and happy summer, everybody. This past Friday was the summer solstice, the longest daylight day of our year. And it is that time that we are reminded that, again, seasons change. And we are in a season of great growth and light. And even around this light, as we discussed in meditation, there were a few clouds that seemed to kind of want to cast a little bit of shadow of doubt over the world this past week. And there's always things that are going to be out there that are going to maybe challenge us and challenge our beliefs. But it's this season of light, that this sunlight and this summer solstice, where that light and that warmth is so abundant that we're reminded and our faith is strengthened and a greater power. And we're reminded that we always carry that light within. And I found this quote from Ernest Holmes from our Science of Mind text that I thought was really beautiful. And it says, "The light cannot be borrowed from one another. Each has been furnished with a divine torch whose wick burns from the oil of the eternal, an ever-renewing substance of faith in oneself and in each other." And I think this is important because we realize that we can't borrow that from one another, that we each one of us has that light within us. And we have to have the courage to call it forth. It's always inside of us, just waiting to be called forth. All that power, all that light is within each and every one of us every second of every day. And I just think that's really important to recognize. And so this morning, our affirmative prayer is going to, we're going to move on to that next. And we're going to expel and get rid of any darkness and doubt. And my intention is to just get us centered in that light and in that torch and call that forth as we open our service and our celebration this morning. So join me now. Get relaxed in your seats. Uncross any legs, arms, limbs. Be open and receptive. I'm going to say this prayer in first person and invite you to take in that which resonates with you. Let's just take a deep breath and exhale and know this together. There is one infinite power, one divine intelligence operating throughout this universe and operating through me and each person present right now and always. And I am always one with this divine power and light because it is always within, that divine torch, just waiting to be called forth. And we call that forth now. We let that light shine. We radiate that light and truth. And in doing so, we are connected, powerfully connected to everything, every creative power, all that there is in our world and in our universe. We are all one. And today and every day, I celebrate this divine torch which burns within me and with each person present. I claim divine right courage, divine wisdom, divine love to bless and prosper me and everyone present every day, knowing that we are always called to let this light shine. And in doing so, the world is a better, more beautiful, more loving place. there is peace within. And when we radiate this peace, there is peace out in the world. This is my truth. I celebrate it with love and joy and gratitude. I know that this light shining within me is beautiful, and I am beautiful, and I recognize it in everyone else. And in doing so, the world is a better place. This is the power of truth, living and moving through me and through each. And it is wonderful. And we recognize it as so. And we release this treatment into the universal law, knowing it is done. And we say together, and so it is.
So it is.
Thank you.
Part of what I love about that song is it's a good illustration of part of what we want to look at and talk about today. And that is the idea that sometimes the most simple and ordinary things are the most extraordinary and outstanding things. And sometimes things which we think of as almost magical, but in their spectacularness and their splendor, when we look at them, we become clear they are not so much so. We become clear that while they may be that on one level, on another level, they're just ordinary. I'm getting a huge amount of echo up here. Are you getting it out there? Back up? Okay. That might help. There we go. All right. Extraordinary, ordinary. So the idea of today's exploration is to look at and think about this whole business of ordinary and extraordinary. And sometimes the difference in one or the other is as simple as a choice. As simple as what are you paying attention to? As simple as what does a particular event or thing mean to you? Simple example. Got off the streetcar in San Francisco, walking down Castro, I guess it was, one of the streets, and kind of half looking around the buildings and not looking where I'm going, and bumped into, physically, a friend I hadn't seen in 8 years. Didn't know was anywhere in that part of the world even. And I go, wow, how cool. So we ran and grabbed something to drink and sat and talked and caught up and had a great time and went on our way. Extraordinary, and yet ordinary. Some would call that a coincidence, others would call it something else, something more. So what I'm inviting you to do with me today is to think about, spend some time thinking about this whole business of the things that occur in our lives as an invitation or a way to turn from externals more to the internal, and to think about those things that have been happening in your life and see if they are an invitation or an avenue for you to connect more with the infinite, to connect more with the oneness, to connect more with the truth within you that is always there and that is present. And the best way to do that, I think, is to give you a story to start with. It's very dear to my heart. That is an example of the ordinary turning extraordinary, and yet being very ordinary. There are dolphins always in the bay going in and out of San Francisco at sunset. Sun always sets every day. Happens all the time. Sometimes you notice it, sometimes you don't. Every day at sunset on that bay, people get in their sailboats and they sail out for the sunset cruise. And all of that goes on all the time. Well, once, several years ago, I had my foster son with me, and we were on our way to Asilomar. I had taken him in. Our whole center did. He walked into our center one Sunday with his guitar and a bag and dressed quite nicely, but washed and scrubbed, but clearly looking lost. And we found out he had been turned out by his parents because he was gay, and they would have no part of it. They had a very strict religious background and upbringing. And he was, even though he was only 16, he looked to be 21 or 22. So they were able to get away with it. And he'd been on the streets for a while. Had spent the night before with someone and had gotten cleaned up. And he'd been hearing about us, and he'd been reading about science of mind. I don't know where exactly. Different places. So he showed up on our doorstep. He had a guitar, and he said, "Can I sing for you?" And we're like, well, we were a small enough group, and we had enough flexibility. We said, "Sure, come on up, sing something." So he did just before I talked. And it was beautiful, and it was something he wrote, and it was all about the power of one and how it comes forth and comes forward in our lives. So needless to say, the whole place adopted him immediately. And we raised him then for the next 4 years. And so at one point, he was going with me to San Francisco to also go to Asilomar. And as was standard, we went to San Francisco first and then to Asilomar. So he'd never been out there. He'd never seen the West Coast, et cetera, et cetera. It was an exciting time for him, just exuberant with excitement. So we got there, and we ended up on the top of Twin Peaks to watch the sunset over San Francisco Bay. And over the Pacific, actually. The sun rises over. Anyway, so the fog moved in. Just as we get up there. You can't see anything but that. Maybe the hand in front of your face. And we're just going, well, bummer, this is terrible. Where did we miss our treatments? And we've been treating about the very perfect trip. And he said, well, I have a solution for this. Let's go to the beach. We have time to get there, don't we, before the sun completely sets? And I'm like, sure we do. Hopped in the car, zoom, 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 driving like I love to, which is race car-ish. And we made it to the beach. We run out on the beach before the sun is down. And as it falls below the fog, it comes out of the fog, and we see this blazing sunset right on the water. And then it drops down a little bit. And my grandfather always said, when you're watching the sunset, listen for the sizzle. Because, when the sun touches the water, you're going to hear the sizzle if you listen really well. Well, I was very much grown before I knew better than that. So I told him, listen for the sizzle. And we're watching this. And sure enough, right on schedule, here comes a sailboat sailing right in front of the sun. And we're jumping up and down and squealing and carrying on because it's so exciting and so synchronous and so perfect. And he says, can it get better than this? And 2 dolphins come out of the water and go over the sun. Now, of course, they didn't go over the sun, but from where we stood, it looked like it. You've seen pictures like that. Well, we saw it in real life. Well, I'm in tears. He's in tears. We're cheering. We're shouting. And then he says, look behind you. And we look behind us, and the full moon had just come up over the hills. There was nothing to do but experience that moment. It was extraordinary. It was miraculous. It was beautiful. It was wonderful. And it was ordinary. You see, too often we get caught up in the idea that things like that are miracles that happen because there's some supernatural power at work in life that is making them happen outside of the natural world, outside of what we do and what we know. And we just have to figure out the key to that and learn the magic words, abracadabra, or Shazam, or whatever the words are. Please and thank you is one of those. And we forget, or we don't know many times, that was simply the result of a lot of beliefs, a lot of treatments, a lot of natural phenomena coming together at the right moment at the right time. And you've all experienced that, where you're thinking about someone and they call you. Or someone's been on your mind and you bump into them in a restaurant or on the street. That's no accident. That's no coincidence. Those things do not happen accidentally. There is no such thing as an accident. Oh, yeah, but you don't understand. Well, yeah, I do. I've been at a few things people call accidents. I did, too, at the time. Before I left Atlanta years ago, in 3 months, I got rear-ended in my car, sitting at a traffic light. I finally got the message. It's time to move. It's time to move on. Quit sitting still. And sure enough, 3 months later, I had my call to my first center. Once I stop looking at it as me being victimized by something outside of myself doing it to me, and looking at what is this here that is being created for me to learn from? What is showing up that there's something here for me to know and to do? So our goal, so the whole thing is about there is something to know and something to do about all of this. What we do here in the center oftentimes is we talk a lot about the knowing and we talk about the doing, and sometimes we don't always get those together. Well, today I want to try to pull those together. I have a 3.5 hour talk, but we'll be out of here on time, I promise. And you're already getting it. Because there's a difference between that extraordinary that seems to be magic, or that people would tell you is magic, and that extraordinary that is simply the ordinary, natural dynamics of life that are coming together in coordination. And that's where infinite intelligence comes in. Infinite intelligence is the coordinating factor. It is the organizing idea that takes what you're looking for and what you're believing in and what you're going after and what I'm looking for and I'm believing in and I'm going after, and somehow coordinates this planet of billions of people into something unified. And now, granted, it's not always pretty because we have conflicting wishes and desires, and they get called by all kinds of names. But I want to share with you a few things to know that will help in this. Why even bother with this, by the way? We're bothered with this because if we understand how this system works, we can have a better experience of living within it and using it. It's kind of like when you get a new cell phone or a new computer. If you're over 14, you have to learn how to use it. If you're under 14, you just use it. But you don't need to know. But for those of us that have been around a while, you have to figure it out. The better we understand and know the system we live in, the better, more effective we can live our lives. The more we can be that life showing up in the way we want to be rather than what just seems to be handed to us. So here's some things to know. You need to know who you are and where you are. You're an expression of this one power. You are not separate from it. You are not somehow created and dropped into some vacuum to figure out how to live. You are it, the thing itself, showing up, spirit itself, individualized. And you are dropped into, what you're dropped into is the same thing. Where we live, who we are, where we are is we are living in this amazing universe that is the thing itself, that is spirit itself, that is life itself. And life is showing up in all kinds of ways. I want you to talk about, called the stump and the shrew. Because I'd been hiking in North Carolina, and there was a stump that was riding away, and there was a shrew next to it that was just doing what shrews do, going 90 miles an hour trying to feed itself. And I thought, there's as much life in that dead stump as there is in that shrew. They're just each doing something different, because that dead stump was alive with chemical processes and things happening in it and feeding all kinds of life as it was going through its process of change. And the shrew, of course, just couldn't be still because it eats like 6 times its weight every day, so it has to really go. Man, I wish I could do that. Anyway, that's a different talk. Something else to know. There are no accidents or coincidences, only synchronicities. When you lose your cell phone and somebody calls you, it rings and you know where to get it. Or when you lose your glasses and you get over believing anything can ever be lost in the universe and decide it's somewhere and you'll find it at the right moment, and there it is. It shows up. There are no miracles, only ordinaries. If you call a miracle something that happens supernaturally, then there are no miracles. If you call a miracle simply a very exciting, ecstatic, amazing coordination of natural processes coming together, then yeah, you can have miracles. Sometimes I think we should call our teaching a course in ordinaries. Because what so many people call miracles, we call ordinaries. They are the ordinary happenings of life. And especially when you learn how to change your thinking, change your life, and have this amazing universe around you responding to you accordingly. Someone say it's a miracle that I'm standing here. No miracle. It's a whole bunch of ordinaries, some pretty spectacular ordinaries. got me out of the swamp and got me out of that place and those times and other situations over the years and got me here. Lots of amazing people involved in that, offering love and support and nurture and taking me in off the street. Not really ever literally on the street, but close. So think about that in your life. The amazing things that have happened that might look miraculous, and yet they all are coordinated in some way. They all are ordinaries. You know, even the Roman Catholics have an idea of this. They have the ordinary of the Mass. The Mass is this mystical, magical, beautiful, wonderful experience that people participate in, and yet it has an ordinary. And the ordinary are the basic 5 parts of it that happen every time. It's ordinary, but it's also extraordinary. There's no division. Something else to know. There's no division between sacred and secular. Huh? How's that possible? We have sacred things over here, and we have secular things over there. Sacred things are those spiritual things that are closer to God, and secular things are those things that God would have nothing to do with. Well, when you live in a universe, when you live in a system that is all spirit and all God, there can be nothing secular. There is nothing separated from it. Now, there are many things that may appear to be. That's one of the reasons we don't call this a sanctuary or a secular, or a sacred space. It is sacred. But so is your house. So is the backyard. So is every place on this planet and beyond this planet. It's all sacred. You are all sacred. There is nothing about you that is separate. Because to be not to be sacred or to be secular, you have to be separated from the infinite. Now, you can believe you are, and you can act like you are, and we all know people who seem to do that. We all know life pieces that seem to appear that way. But, even the silliest kinds of things are still sacred. And that helps me, especially when I'm driving. Sometimes better than others. Help me to remember that everybody behind the wheel is an experience of the Spirit right there, having their own life. They're not idiots. I got reminded of that several times today, coming in. We have to move past this stuff where it becomes so automatic to go to that dualistic, I'm a victim and accidents happen, to there are no victims, there are only creative opportunities. And what sometimes look like mistakes and accidents, this is the next thing to know, are really opportunities. Opportunities to do something else. Opportunities for a change. Opportunities to go a different direction. Opportunities to live in a way that we hadn't thought of before because the other way didn't work it anymore. Going back a minute to the miracles and ordinaries, one of the things that some of the teachers in our movement have said many times is that today's miracles is tomorrow's science. If you imagine people of 100 years ago seeing how we live, they would think we were some kind of mystical, magical beings when you think about all that we do and the way we do it, just in my lifetime. If we couldn't adjust to it as we go and we suddenly were dropped in the middle of it, it would look miraculous. But the truth is, what looks miraculous to us today, I remember in school being taught that bumblebees can't fly. Now they do, but there's no scientific reason for that. We now know that's not true. We found the scientific way that they do that. All of these things come around and we find the naturalness of life. So no mistakes. There's nothing to be against, only something to be for. Oh yeah, but you don't understand how I feel about the world situation today. What about hunger? What about the situation of individuals being hurt? What about my friend Scott left on the street? We were never against his parents. People reached out to them. We loved them. We taught them to love their son. So when he was 21, he went back home to live with them. for a while. Because they had learned something different by being loved, not by having people fight against them because they were bigoted or small-minded or having any kind of name-calling going on with them. Dr. Holmes says, give me 1,000 people who are for this teaching and for something, and we'll change the world. And we have. And we'll continue to do it. I'm inviting you today to be one of those 1,000, 10,000, 100,000. Something else to know. There's no death. Only life after life after life. And actually, there's no afterlife. There's just life. You just go through this one till you're tired of this mess you're carrying around, and it gets too messy to carry around. And then you let it go, and you move on to whatever's next. And if you're like my mother, you show up and you annoy your son in the middle of the night sometimes. Yeah. You do those fun things you like to do. Or you probably not. Probably you go right on to some whole other experience that we have no idea about. We just make up stories because we know it's there. So what do we do? That's what we need to know. So what do we do? Number one, we got to stay awake. I know it's that point in the talk where you need to tell people, stay awake. Stay awake. Right? Stay awake. Stay awake. We live in a world right now that does everything it can, not by some sinister intention, but because we're bombarded with so much. There's a huge pull to go to sleep, to be lulled out by all of the intensity. Can you imagine if you had the job? Can you imagine watching all the YouTubes that came out today before you go to bed tonight? There was a time when you could read the whole newspaper in a week or a day and get all the news. Now you can't get all the news if you read the things that came out right now for the next 6 weeks because it's so much. We're being bombarded with so much information and so much ideas and so many different conflicting things and so many opinions and so many things to be afraid of and so many things to love and so many things to hate and so many things to buy so we'll be slim and beautiful. All of those things are hitting us all the time. So it takes some real commitment to stay awake. Stay awake to what? Stay awake to the truth of ourselves. Stay awake to who we really are. So that's the first thing we have to do. Because to see these miraculous ordinaries happening in our lives, we have to be awake to them. We have to be paying attention. A lot of people walked by on that beach with Scotty and I and didn't see what we saw. They noticed the moon, they noticed the sunset, but they were none of them standing in exactly the right spot to be at the right angle to have the ship and the dolphins and the sun at the same time. You had to be in the right spot at the right time and paying attention and looking for something. We were both looking for excitement and joy and newness and oneness, and it showed up. Simple things to pay attention. Read something meaningful and powerful and spiritually focused every morning when you start your day. Get your brain in the right direction to start with. And every night before you go to bed, don't go to bed with your head full of the news or your head full of fearful nonsense. Let your subconscious mind take the good stuff that you've accomplished in the day when you go into sleep, so it can work with that and work with you and help bring it forward for you. Your subconscious mind is your best friend. For a while we were taught in this country, your subconscious mind is your problem. Because here you are going along and you subconsciously do something to self-destruct. Well, we know better than that now. Everything in your subconscious mind, you either allowed to be put there or you put there. So now you get to change it because you can shift what's there. And you can turn it over to your sleeping subconscious mind and say, hey, I want to know the answer to this question tomorrow morning. I'm getting way ahead of myself. It's okay. So do your day. Wake up. Set an intention in the morning. What kind of day do I want to have today? I'm not talking about do your do list. You need to do that too, probably. But before you do your do list for the day, do your be list for the day. What kind of day do I want to experience today? I want a day of love. I want a day of ease. I want a day of excitement, perhaps. I want a day of experiencing something new. So I'm setting my intentions. Today is the day I will have these things. and specifically what it is I want to know and experience and feel. And then get on to what you got to do. And trust that those things you want to feel and experience are going to show up in those do's as you're doing your do's. And as you do that, and as you set out on your day, throughout your day, accent it here and there with gratitude. Thank yous. Not necessarily thank you to something, but thank you for something. Gratitude for an experience. Gratitude for seeing or a feeling. I got to listen in on my grandson's playing video games this week. And he does this thing, you probably know all about it, but he does this thing where he's playing a video game and he's got 6 of his best friends on there playing with him, and they're all talking through the same headphone, and he's playing the video game, and he's like having this conversation with them, and I'm sitting there and he's having a conversation with me at the same time, so we're all having this conversation while they're supposed to be running around shooting each other, but instead they're running around dancing with each other because there are also app things in there that let them dance. And it's the silliest, funniest thing I'd seen in a long time. Not nearly as vicious as I'd always thought those things were. And I had a marvelous time. At one point I got almost tearful because I was so grateful to be allowed into that world that is coming up behind me, and one I never had a chance to tap into. If we wanted to see our friends, we got to get in the car and drive somewhere. They just go on the net. It's great. Turn on a video game. And then they're there and they're connecting and they're talking and they're sharing stories in between dancing and shooting at each other and all those other silly things they're doing. I was so grateful for that. It was like, wow. Grateful for my grandkids. Grateful for my kid. Grateful for all of those things around you as you bump into them. If you constantly turn your mind in that direction, you will constantly move away from being asleep and stay awake into who we are and what we're about and how we're there. Yeah. And then at night, gratitude, gratitude, gratitude. And then pay attention to what's unfolding in front of you. Take the time. Slow down. Smell the roses. How often have we heard that? But it's real. It's meaningful. Keep punctuating the gratitude. So I want to close with words from our founder, Ernest Holmes. So over in the back of the textbook, there's sections back here that we have historically shied away from in certain parts of the world in this teaching, in the chapter on the finding the Christ, because it got too associated with old, painful religious experiences people had, so people quit reading it. But it's a rich, rich source for those of you who are ready to see the Christ as that's another name for the one power that is everything, rather than associated with the religion. Here's what he says. There's a place in the mentality, in the heights of its greatest realization, where it throws itself, the mentality throws itself with complete abandon into the very center of the universe. There's a point in the supreme moment of realization where the individual merges with the universe, but not to the loss of the individuality, where a sense of the oneness of all life so enters our being that there is no sense of otherness at all. It is here, in this sense of oneness, that the mentality performs seeming miracles, because there is nothing to hinder the whole from coming through. We can do this only by providing the mental equivalence of life. In other words, by believing in it, by seeing it, by imagining it, by knowing it's there. By dwelling and meditating upon the immensity of life and the fact that as vast and as immense, as limitless as it is, the whole of it is brought to the point of our own consciousness. If we get that, I'm saying we, I'm including me. If I get that, when I get that, and if I get that on a day-to-day basis, look out, world. We not only change ourselves, but we change the world. This is truth. I invite you to join me in this truth because you are wonderful. And so am I. So it is. Thank you. So I want to take a moment and let's spend a little time in that place where that infinite power is most effectively known within ourselves. So I invite you to take a deep breath and to simply turn your attention away from what's around you. Let the thoughts that have passed through your mind and the feelings and the ideas simply lay dormant for a few minutes until you're ready to pick them up again. And if you choose, open your heart, your mind, your awareness to that place within you that resonates with the truth when you hear it. Wherever you hear it. To that still, quiet space within that is bigger, feels bigger, can be experienced as bigger, where you feel yourself bigger than your body, bigger than your space around you. Limited in no way. We settle gently into that space. Breathing in, breathing out, letting ourselves pause a moment on the out-breath, letting our minds go quiet. We listen. We listen for the word, the feeling, the thought, the image of truth there is for each of us today, right now. I let go and deny any idea or belief in separation or dividedness between myself and the infinite power and life and knowledge that God is, the Spirit is. Because I'm alive, I'm it. It is in me. I release anything in my mind that would deny that. And I know that the one power that is life, the one power that is God, the one power that is mind, whatever name we give it, is one. It's a universal field of energy and information, and we are in it, and it is who and what we're made of. I'm an individual expression of energy and information, a beingness, within a greater beingness that is constantly responding to me according to my deepest beliefs. And right now, I declare my own desire for a greater awareness, a greater truth, a greater expression or revelation of something in my life that I know is mine to bring forward. I let go of any questions of how it's to happen or what the form of it might be, and I simply allow myself to truly choose to believe in its reality. I imagine it, therefore it is. And so that greater good that is mine to know and to express and to bring forward reaches out to me with the same energy and desire that I reach out toward it. That greater experience of life, greater prosperity, greater health, greater love, greater opportunities to do the creative work that is mine to do and that I know is mine to do. I let go pushing against anything. I let go of pushing against any frustrations, any limits, anything that might appear to stop me. I turn away from those and instead turn to and turn toward that which I know is me and for me. And as I do so, I feel the aha within me that says yes, and here it shows up, and here it comes, and pay attention and notice, because it'll show up. Maybe when you least expect it, maybe when I'm not paying attention, but it will call me to pay attention. If there are any things in my consciousness, my mind, my belief system that need to be cleared away in order for the greater truth to show up, then by action of this treatment, I choose for them to be cleared away, and I instruct my own subconscious mind to do so. I change my mind by choice. And I choose to live an extraordinary life of ordinary living. I know this is available for me and to me and through me, and right now I choose to let it be me. And therefore I am fully connected to the One. Fully in sync, fully in line. I'm grateful for this. I'm grateful that I live in this kind of world. I'm grateful I can feel this in my own being. I'm grateful I can be aware and recognize with that inner yes when I have stumbled upon the truth, when the truth has shown up in my life for me. Grateful that I can embrace it. And in this gratitude, right now, right here, I can release this treatment knowing it is done. It is complete for now, and I know that everything that needs to happen and come together in order for it to show up physically in my world is already set in motion. And I watch for it. I let this be so. And if you agree, you may say with me, and so it is. Thank you. Hi. Oh yeah, you're out there. Okay, this is our time when we celebrate our prosperity. We celebrate circulation and flow. We do so not from a place of lack, but from a place of plenty, knowing that we are all divinely supplied with so much bounty. And we choose to share it with one another and with this community and with this center. So I invite you to choose to do that. I invite you to do it according to your choice, according to your best idea of the value received and the value given. I would also, yes, so that would be it. So let's join together in our affirmation. It's printed in your program. I live in a universe of abundance. As I freely and joyfully give, I join in the divine flow, and all that I share with life returns to me multiplied abundantly, and so it is.